I knew the meeting was going to be bad the second I saw the extra chair in Greg's office. Not the one for me. The one for Brandon, Greg's nephew. The human participation trophy. He was sitting there already, in my usual seat across from Greg's desk, spinning slowly from side to side in a chair that squeaked every time he moved. Greg smiled when I walked in. "Sam, great to see you," he said, standing up like we hadn't just spoken in the hallway 10 minutes before. "Have a seat." There was only one left, the little visitor's chair in the corner. The one people used when they were in trouble. I shut the door behind me and took it. Brandon stopped spinning. He gave me a fake sympathy smile, the kind you give a kid who just dropped their ice cream. "What's up?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay light. "I thought my one-on-one was tomorrow." Greg sat back down, folding his hands. "I know," he said. "But some things came up, and I thought it'd be better to kill two birds with one stone." I love corporate euphemisms. They're like little fortune cookies filled with dread. He cleared his throat. "As you know," he said, Q3 was challenging. The company's restructuring. New leadership wants to see more fresh blood in management. He glanced at Brandon, then back at me. And I'd been asked to make some changes. My stomach tightened. "What kind of changes?" I asked. He exhaled through his nose like this was really hard for him. "Sam, you've been solid," he said. "But sometimes, solid isn't enough. We need innovative. We need hungry." He gestured toward Brandon. "And Brandon here has shown a lot of leadership potential in the last few months. The execs have noticed him." I almost laughed. Leadership potential? This was the same guy who thought version control was sending yourself the file with final in the name. I stared at Greg. "What are you saying?" I asked. He leaned forward. "I'm offering you a chance to refocus," he said. "Starting Monday, Brandon will be stepping into the operations manager role, my role," I said. "And you'll move to senior coordinator," he finished. "Less responsibility. Less stress. A chance to regroup." Demoted. He was demoting me. To promote his nephew. My ears rang. "Is this performance-based?" I asked, every HR article I'd ever read humming in the back of my head. Because my last review was exceeds expectations. I hit every metric this quarter. Our biggest client literally sent an email last week saying they wouldn't have renewed without me. Greg's smile got tighter. "This isn't about the past," he said. "It's about where we're going. The high-reps want new faces. Guys like Brandon represent the future of the company." "Guys related to you, you mean?" I said before I could stop myself. Brandon shifted. "Hey, that's not fair," he said. "I've earned this. I stayed late like 3 nights last month." I closed my eyes for a second. When I opened them, I looked straight at Greg. "Is this retaliation for refusing to change those numbers last week?" I asked quietly. His face flushed. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "Oh, I think you do," I said. "The cleaned-up report you asked me to generate for the execs. The one where you told me to massage the failure rates so it looked like Brandon's pilot program wasn't a disaster." Brandon's mouth dropped. "You said you fixed that," he blurted out. Greg glared at him. "We are not discussing internal strategy in this conversation," he said through gritted teeth. "This decision is final. You can accept the new role or you can—" I felt suddenly, completely calm. Because I'd already started exploring another option. Not an opportunity. A file. A folder, actually. On my personal, password-protected drive. Labeled simply, Greg. He thought I'd deleted everything. He was wrong. If you'd asked anyone at Northbridge Logistics who kept that department running, most of them would have said Greg, Director of Operations. 10 years at the company. Big voice in meetings. But if you asked who actually made sure things didn't catch fire, it was me. I'm Samantha Sam to everyone except my grandmother and the IRS. I started at Northbridge straight out of college as a logistics coordinator. I liked systems. I liked spreadsheets. I liked making chaos line up in neat rows and behave. In 3 years, I'd gone from answering emails to managing half our client portfolio. I built the tracking dashboards. I caught errors in shipment schedules before trucks left the warehouse. I was the one people called when the system glitched at 2 a.m. Greg liked to say, "Sam's my right hand." It sounded flattering. What he meant was, Sam does the work, I take the credit. For a while, I didn't mind. That's how corporate ladders work, right? You grind. You get noticed. Eventually, someone with a better title retires and you move up. That's what happened, in theory, when the previous operations manager left. Greg called me into his office. "You've been killing it," he said. "I'm going to promote you. More money, more responsibility. How's that sound?" It sounded like progress. I accepted. My title changed. My workload tripled. My pay bumped. A little. I told myself it was a start. Then Brandon arrived. Brandon was 23 and came straight from exploring his options after dropping out of college. He was Greg's sister's son. I found that out when Greg introduced him at the Monday meeting. "Everyone, this is Brandon," he said. "He's going to be joining us as a junior operations associate. He's family, so be nice." He laughed. No one else did. Brandon waved. "Hey," he said. "I'm kind of a quick learner, so I'll probably be in your job in like a year." He pointed at me. I smiled tightly. "We can only hope," I said. Greg chuckled like that was charming. Within 2 weeks, it was clear Brandon had never actually held a real job. He strolled in 20 minutes late most mornings with a giant iced coffee. He worked from home on Fridays, but somehow always had new Instagram stories from bars. He missed basic deadlines, then blamed the system or confusing emails. He'd forward client questions to me with "Can you handle?" in the subject line. If I answered directly, he'd reply all and say, like I was saying earlier, and copy-paste my words. If a project went well, Greg would say things like, "Brandon really stepped up. Sam, great support as always." If it went poorly, it was always "Sam, how did this slip through?" I tried at first to coach him. I sat down with him and walked through our workflow. I showed him how to use the project management software. I created step-by-step guides. He'd nod, scroll on his phone, and then say, "Can't you just do it and I'll watch?" Greg, of course, thought his nephew walked on water. "That kid's got potential," he'd say. "He just needs a strong mentor. That's you." I felt like a babysitter with a Gantt chart. The breaking point for me wasn't actually the demotion. It was a file. Specifically, a PowerPoint deck titled, "Q2 Pilot Program Results Brandon Carter Lead." Brandon's name. Not mine. I found it in the shared drive 3 weeks before my demotion. Up until that point, I'd been leading a pilot program to streamline shipments for one of our biggest clients, Meridian Retail. It was my baby. I designed the new routing logic. I coordinated with warehouse leads. I set up the KPI tracking. Brandon's official role was support, which he interpreted as occasionally asking how it was going and then vanishing. The pilot was rocky at first. We had some data integrity issues. A few orders were misrouted when Brandon forgot to update the mapping table. We fixed it. By the end of Q2, on-time delivery had improved 12%, error rates were down 8%, and we'd saved the client roughly $150,000. I was proud. Then Greg sent a calendar invite. Review Q2 pilot results exec presentation run-through. Participants: Greg, me, Brandon. Location: Greg's office. I went in expecting to go through my deck. Instead, Greg projected the one I mentioned, Q2 pilot program results Brandon Carter led. The first slide had a photo of Brandon in a high-vis vest at the warehouse, arms crossed like he'd just supervised the construction of the pyramids. My name appeared once. On slide 12. In 10-point font under support staff. I said. "This is different from the draft I sent." Greg waved a hand. "I cleaned it up," he said. "We don't have time to walk the execs through all the messy details. We just need a high-level story. A story where Brandon led the project?" I asked. "Well, his name sells better upstairs," Greg said. "Fresh face, young talent, you know the drill." I looked at Brandon. He was trying not to smirk. "I don't love having my work erased," I said carefully. Greg smiled patronizingly. "Sam, you're thinking too small," he said. "When Brandon looks good, the department looks good. When the department looks good, we all win. Some of us win more than others," I said. His eyes narrowed. "Don't make this about ego," he said. "Besides, you'll still talk through the technical slides. Brandon will cover the vision pieces. It's complementary." "It's my vision," I said. He sighed. "Look," he said. "You've had your moment. You got the promotion. This is about building the bench. Brandon is the future. Your support. That's just the dynamic." I felt like I'd been slapped, but I swallowed it. For the moment. Because there was something else on slide 5 that bothered me even more. A graph. On-time delivery pre-pilot versus pilot. The numbers were wrong. They showed a 20% improvement, not 12%. The baseline error rate was lower than our real one. That's not our data, I said. Meridian's last quarter on-time rate was 86%, not 78%. And we're at 98%, not 106%. There's no such thing as more than 100%, Greg. He chuckled. You and your details, he said. It's normalized. It tells a cleaner story. It's misleading, I said. If Meridian sees these numbers, they'll ask questions. They have their own tracking. Relax, he said. This is for internal execs. Marketing will smooth it over in the client version. No harm done. It's still lying, I said. He leaned back. Sam, he said, voice cooling, sometimes you have to be a team player. If you're going to get hung up on every little discrepancy, you're going to limit your career here. I'd rather limit my career than fudge numbers, I said. We stared at each other. Brandon shifted uncomfortably. Greg finally sighed. Fine, he said. Fix the graph to whatever makes you happy. But keep Brandon's name on the lead. That's non-negotiable. I fixed the graph. But before I changed anything, I downloaded a copy of the original deck. The one with the fake numbers and the metadata showing Greg as the author. I put it in a folder on my personal drive labeled Pilot Original. Under that, I created a subfolder called Red Flags. I didn't know exactly why. Just that I had a feeling I'd need it. After the presentation, it was like someone had injected Greg with pure nepotism. The execs loved Brandon's energy. They called him a rising star. I watched him bask in praise for work I'd done, with numbers I'd cleaned up, in a strategy I'd designed. Greg doubled down. He assigned Brandon to lead a new strategic initiative. He started CCing him on every email I sent. He'd say things like, Sam will do the heavy lifting, Brandon can learn by osmosis. I tried to ignore it, focus on the work. But then the Meridian client sent that glowing email I mentioned. We wanted to highlight Samantha's exceptional support during this pilot. Her responsiveness and problem-solving were the reason we signed on for the full rollout. They sent it to Greg, CCing his boss. Greg forwarded it to me with a single line. Good work. Please make sure Brandon is looped in on all future comms. No thank you. No, let's talk about your next step. 2 days later, he asked me to normalize numbers for another deck. This time for a quarterly operations review that would be sent to clients. When I pushed back, that's when he said I was not a team player. And 3 days after that, I was in his office, being told his nephew was my new boss. He thought the worst thing he'd done was demoting me. He was wrong. The worst thing he'd done was put all of his shady decisions in writing. And in files. Files he assumed I'd either delete or never think to keep. He underestimated how much I liked documentation. That Greg folder on my drive started small. The original deck with the fudged numbers. A few emails where he blatantly credited Brandon for my work. A screenshot of a Slack convo where he wrote, Don't CC Sam on this, she'll overcomplicate it. Just tell her to run the report later. After my demotion, it grew. I pulled performance review drafts out of our HR system. At Northbridge, managers had to fill out self-reviews, then manager reviews, then send them to HR. Greg often asked me to draft my own to save time. I found my original draft from 6 months prior, where I'd written, led Meridian pilot resulting in 12% improvement in on-time delivery and $150,000 in savings. Designed new routing logic and reporting structure. Then I found Greg's manager review. He'd copied my bullet points and replaced led with supported Brandon on. He'd rated me meets expectations, not exceeds, with a note, strong technically, but needs to work on big picture thinking and supporting emerging leaders. Emerging leaders. Code for my nephew. I took screenshots. I also found an email from HR after I'd raised questions about the promotion. I'd gone to them naively, the week after the demotion. Is there an appeals process? I'd asked. I feel like this was unfair. I have evidence of contributions that were ignored. The HR rep, Kelsey, had smiled sympathetically. Greg says this was a performance-neutral reorganization, she'd said. No pay cut, just a change in responsibilities. Leadership has broad discretion there. There was a pay cut, I'd said. They reduced my bonus tier. She'd blinked. I wasn't aware of that, she'd said. I'll look into it. The looking into it email she sent later said, per Greg, adjustments to bonus eligibility were made across the department. No retaliation. Intended. Please focus on your new role and reach out if you have concerns in the future. Translation. Drop it. I added that to the folder too. The more I dug, the more patterns emerged. Greg, assigning me high visibility work, then presenting it as Brandon's. Rewriting reports to pretty up his results. Asking me verbally to massage certain metrics, with just enough vagueness to give him plausible deniability. He was sloppy in other ways too. Like when he forwarded me an email thread between him and his sister Brandon's mom complaining that HR made me post the job externally. But don't worry, I'll make sure it goes to the right candidate. Nepotism, in writing. I saved it. My folder was getting heavy. I still hadn't decided what to do with it. But when someone hands you a loaded gun and keeps telling you you're powerless, eventually, you start checking where the safety is. Greg removed it himself. About a month after my demotion, Greg called me into his office again. Just me this time. No extra chairs. I stepped in, cautious. What's up? I asked. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit, he said. We need to talk about cleanup. Never a promising word. He swiveled his monitor toward me. On it was his Outlook inbox, open to the sent items folder. He clicked into a search bar and typed Meridian Pilot Original. The deck popped up. My heart rate spiked. That's outdated, he said. So are a few other files. I need you to go through the shared drive and purge anything that makes our early numbers look weak. We don't want clients getting confused if there's a data request. I swallowed. Purge? I repeated. Delete, he said. Permanently. Especially anything with the old graphs, and any draft emails where we talked about fixing those issues. We only want the final, clean version on record. He looked at me pointedly. Consider it version control. My palms were clammy. Is that? I asked. For audits? He waved a hand. Don't be dramatic, he said. We're not Enron. It's just smarter to have one canonical story. And if Meridian asks for project history? I asked. We'll show them the finalized report, he said. They don't care about our messy internal drafts. Legal might, I muttered. He stiffened. Sam, he said, you're either on this team or you're not. I'm giving you a direct instruction. Clean up the files. No need to overthink it. I looked at the original deck on his screen. The one with the fake numbers. The metadata in the corner that said created by Gregory Harris. I understand, I said finally. I left his office, walked back to my desk, and opened the shared drive. Then I did exactly what he asked, and exactly what he didn't ask. I deleted the obvious red flag versions. The ones with bad graphs. The email drafts full of fixed language. But before I did, I saved full copies to my personal drive. Not just screenshots. Actual files. With timestamps. With authorship data. With revision history. I wasn't just protecting myself at that point. I was building an insurance policy. Because a manager who's willing to fudge numbers and hide documents to promote his nephew is a manager who'd happily throw you under a bus if something went wrong. I wanted to make sure that if I went under any wheels, someone would see who was really driving. The chance to use that insurance came sooner than I thought. Northbridge announced an internal audit. Nothing dramatic. Just a routine review of process adherence and ethical compliance by corporate's risk and AMP compliance team. They sent an email to all managers saying, please ensure all project documentation is up to date and accurately reflects historical decisions. Greg came by my desk white-knuckled. Did you do what I asked with the files? He hissed. Yes, I said. The shared drive has only the final versions. He relaxed. Good, he said. Keep it that way. The audit team set up interviews. They asked to talk to project leads. Greg initially listed himself and Brandon as leads for all major initiatives, including the Meridian pilot. I saw the list when an auditor, innocently, asked me for a minor clarification and referred to it. Something in me snapped into place. I emailed the audit team's generic inbox. Subject, clarification Meridian pilot roles and metrics. I kept it neutral at first. Hi, I worked extensively on the Meridian pilot and noticed my name wasn't listed as a project lead. Happy to provide background if helpful. They replied within an hour. Yes, we'd love to speak with you. Can you meet Thursday at 10? When I walked into the small conference room Thursday morning, there were two people there, a woman from compliance and a man from internal audit. They introduced themselves. Sam, we just want to understand how projects are handled on the ground, the woman said. This isn't a witch hunt. Think of it as a process checkup. Okay, I said. Where should we start? They asked about workflows, decision-making, who signs off on metrics. I answered honestly. Then they asked, have you ever been asked to alter data for presentations in a way that made you uncomfortable? I hesitated. This was the moment. My pulse thundered in my ears. Yes, I said. They exchanged a glance. Can you tell us more? The man asked. I took a breath. Then I told them about the fake graph, about Greg's normalized language, about the file cleanup request. I didn't editorialize. I didn't call it fraud. I just described actions. When I finished, the room felt strangely quiet. The compliance woman leaned forward. Do you have any documentation of those earlier versions? She asked carefully. I met her eyes. I do, I said. I pulled out a USB drive. I'd almost labeled it Greg Doom but settled on something boring. Q2 Pilot Archive. I made personal backups, I said, in case we ever needed to show the evolution of the project. Greg thought I deleted everything. I didn't. They looked at each other again. This changes what we're looking at, the man said finally. Would you be comfortable sharing those files with us in HR? There may be implications beyond this audit. Comfortable is a strong word, I said dryly. But yes. I'd rather the company know than not. He smiled faintly. That's fair, he said. They plugged the drive into a laptop, pulled up the original deck. I watched their faces as they saw the 106% improvement. The metadata, the save dates, the revision comments from Greg's account, bump pre-pilot baseline down a bit, looks better. The email chain where he told me to purge the drafts. They asked if I had anything else. I gave them a second folder. The one with the HR emails, the performance review edits, the nepotism comments. And just so you're aware, I added, I've already backed all of this up to a secure cloud folder. If someone tries to make it disappear, there will still be a record. The compliance woman nodded, impressed. You documented very thoroughly, she said. It's how my brain works, I said. And I had a feeling I might need to prove I'm not crazy someday. They thanked me. Told me the standard we can't share details of ongoing investigations line. I went back to my desk with my heart in my throat. For 2 days, nothing happened. Then Greg stopped talking to me. Then Brandon stopped hovering over my chair. Then, on Monday morning, a calendar invite popped up from HR. Subject: Meeting HR/compliance/Sam. My stomach dropped. Flashbacks to every Don't Rock the Boat story I'd ever heard ran through my mind. I walked into the HR conference room braced for the worst. Kelsey, the HR rep, was there. So were the two auditors. There was an empty chair at the head of the table. 5 minutes later, the VP of Operations, Lisa, walked in. Greg's boss. She sat down, folded her hands and looked at me. Sam, she said, first of all, thank you for coming forward. I blinked. I said. You're welcome? She smiled slightly. We've completed a preliminary review of the materials you provided, she said. They confirmed that certain metrics were misrepresented in internal decks, and that earlier versions of those decks were intentionally removed from the shared drive. She glanced at the compliance woman. And that this was done by Greg, she added. Not by you. My chest loosened just a fraction. We also reviewed your performance history, she continued. It appears the explanation given for your recent demotion was inconsistent with your documented contributions. I laughed once, disbelieving. You could say that, I said. Lisa's expression hardened. Misrepresenting data is a serious violation of our ethics policy, she said. So is retaliating against an employee for raising concerns about that data. She took a breath. Greg has been placed on administrative leave pending further action, she said. Brandon's promotion has been rescinded. We will be reevaluating both of their positions here. My brain short-circuited a little. I repeated. For now, she said. We're following procedure. But you should know we take this very seriously. Kelsey, the HR rep who'd brushed me off before, looked chastened. Sam, I want to apologize for not digging deeper when you first came to me, she said. I should have escalated your concerns instead of accepting Greg's explanation at face value. I nodded, not trusting myself to say anything that wasn't no kidding. Lisa slid a paper across the table. This is a letter formally reinstating you to your previous role, effective immediately, she said. We're also adjusting your bonus tier retroactively for the last 2 quarters. You'll receive back pay in your next check. I stared at it. My name. Operations Manager. It felt... Look, I said slowly, I appreciate that. I really do. But I'm not sure I want to keep working under the same system that let this happen in the first place. Lisa nodded. I understand, she said. Which is why we're also prepared to offer you another option. She slid a second paper toward me. Corporate's analytics team has an opening for a senior project manager, she said. Primarily remote. Different reporting line. They've seen your work on Meridian and are interested. My eyebrows shot up. Corporate? I said. It would be a lateral move in title, she said. But with a significant raise. And frankly, a healthier environment. You'd be far away from local politics. I looked at the 2 letters. One was a restoration. The other, a door. Do I have to decide now? I asked. No, Lisa said. Take a day. Talk to whoever you need to. Just know this. Whatever you choose, what happened with Greg will not be held against you. If anything, your willingness to speak up is a point in your favor. I exhaled slowly. Thank you, I said. As I stood up to leave, the compliance woman added, And Sam, those files you kept? That was smart. Uncomfortable but smart. Not everyone would have done that. I thought of Greg's smirk, of Brandon's shrug, of being told I was support. Somebody had to, I said. I ended up taking the corporate job. Not because I wanted to run away, but because I wanted to run towards somewhere that valued what I did. My last 2 weeks at the old office were interesting. Greg never came back from leave. Rumor around the grapevine was that he'd been let go for policy violations. No one used the word fired out loud. But his name disappeared from the org chart. Brandon lasted another month. They shuffled him into a different department pending reassignment, then quietly exited, when it became clear he wasn't bringing anything to the table that justified the headache. I didn't gloat publicly. Privately? I may have allowed myself 1 extra long coffee break the day I saw his LinkedIn update change from operations manager. Acting, back to seeking new opportunities. HR instituted new rules after that. Required co-signatures on major metric changes. Random spot checks of decks versus system data. More direct reporting channels for employees to raise ethical concerns without having to go through their managers. People joked that I'd given the company trust issues. I corrected them. No, I'd say. Greg gave you trust issues. I just held up the mirror. At my new job, my manager doesn't have any nephews in the building. He does, however, have a habit of CCing me whenever he praises my work to leadership. It's a small thing. But after Northbridge, it feels huge. Sometimes, late at night, I think about how easily this could have gone differently. If I hadn't kept the original deck. If I'd deleted everything like Greg asked. If I'd believed HR's first nothing to see here email. If I'd convinced myself that sabotaging my own ethics was being a team player. Would I still be sitting in that squeaky visitor chair, watching someone else get credit for my work? Possibly. Or I might have snapped in some other less controlled way. Sent a scorched earth email to the entire company. Quit on the spot and never told anyone why. Instead, I did what I do best. I documented. I organized. I let the facts speak louder than my frustration. And when the time was right, I sent HR the files my boss thought I'd deleted. He'd hoped wiping the shared drive would erase his decisions. He forgot 2 important things. Version history is forever. So is the memory of the person doing the real work. My boss demoted me to promote his lazy nephew. So I made sure the people in charge saw exactly who'd been steering the ship. Not out of pettiness. Okay, maybe a little. But mostly because if companies say they care about ethics and performance, someone has to show them when those things are being quietly shredded in a manager's trash can. This time, that someone was me. Next time, I hope it's whoever's listening to this who realizes they're not crazy for thinking this isn't right. Save the file. Back it up. And when you're ready, hit send.